talk a little bit about the Scorekeeper screen and the information available to you. First thing first, you have the player names at the top here and the race, 0 out of 4, 0 out of 5 games needed. It also specify who won the lag. I believe this is only visible when the match is in progress. I do not think it's there after you've completed. And then you have your total running innings. The very top part of the screen in general is going to be your running totals. So you have your running totals of your defense and safeties, your timeouts, and obviously a running total of your innings. Once you get to the bottom of the screen, or kind of like the middle, this bar is going to show how many innings are actually in that particular game. So as your innings at the top go up and add together, this little blue box will actually reset every time that a new rack is started. Some other helpful information that you can access while you're keeping score. If you pull this down and then use your back arrow button to kind of get back to your main screen, this is where you can view rosters. So if you're trying to plan out maybe the next matchup, if it's your throw next and you're trying to look to see people's skill levels, maybe look at skill levels for the opposing team, at any point you can pull this back up and continue scoring and come back down to continue to view the rosters. Your edit roster button, that's going to be found here as well. That's something that you can use during the first 4 weeks of play to make any roster changes that you need to make. So that's another very helpful feature. If you need to get back to the screen the scoreboard, you're just going to tap on your team with the 5 little dots, and that will bring you back to your scoreboard. So let's talk about a couple things that you can edit. This is the very beginning of the match. We've just opened up the match and we are getting ready to start. The blue button is always kind of your go button. Start match is going to bring up our coin and the question of who put up first. So if we tap our coin, let's say I call tails as hood racks. Tails wins. I'm going to ask table dancers to put up first. So even though we won the coin toss, Table Dancers is putting up first. So they're the team I'm going to select on this screen. So let's say you made a mistake there. You mentally were thinking who won the coin toss and you accidentally put up the other team. At any point, you can just tap on Table Dancers put up first and it will allow you to switch. You can do this at any point during the match. The sooner the better. Whichever team is selected will be the order that the rosters will pull up when you start your player match. So let's say the very first match is going to be myself versus, let's say, the other team captain. And at the very beginning, they say, okay, so Jeff won the lag. So editing the lag is not something that you can do. If you come and pull down and go to your edit screen, there is nowhere here that you can specify anything other than Jeff winning the lag, and it will make a difference in the inning count. So the sooner the better. You can reset your player match. So that's bottom red button, and you type reset, and this is the only way. When you tap on the yellow, you reselect the players, and then you have to reselect the other player winning the lag for that lag to switch over to the other player. Another thing that you can do in edit mode is going to be after a rack is completed. So let's say these girls go a couple rounds here, and then Cheyenne, and you say made the 8 ball. So it's going to credit one game to Cheyenne here at the top. Well, let's say that you realize that she scratched on the 8 and you just scored it wrong. So once you come down, so you're going to pull down, and then you're going to pull this blue to the left, and that's going to open up your edit button. Once a rack is completed, it has to be completed and grayed out, and you come into edit, you can come and select Cheyenne's name and how she won the game. So it's asking who ended the game. Cheyenne still ended the game, but it's going to allow me to change this to that she scratched on the 8 ball. That is going to give credit to Gail. This little back arrow button, I will say this is on an Android. I'm pretty sure it's the same on an iPhone, but you're going to hit that a couple times. It'll bring you back to your main screen. And then you can either tap on just this blue box here, or you can slide up from this bottom here. I prefer to do that. You'll notice that the game has now changed over to Gale. You will also notice that it has not changed your actual player that's at the table. So you do need to make sure to hit the button to go ahead and move it to Gale. It's a running inning total at the end, so it's not going to matter that that got marked in this rack and not the previous rack. So don't worry about that. What matters the most is that you have the proper games marked for the player that won. Now let's talk about something you cannot edit. So let's say you're halfway through and you realize that you've selected the wrong player for one of the teams. There is nothing you can do to edit this. The only option that you have is to slide this over, go ahead and reset the player match. So this is something that I would say would want to do sooner than later, but if you're really at the very end of the match, it would be okay to maybe wait till you complete it, do a screenshot of the games won lost, and then go back and edit it at the very end of the night so you're not delaying play. Once you hit reset, you'll notice that the box turns yellow. You do not want to start a new match. What you want to do is you want to select the yellow box. It will allow you now to select the correct player against her so that you don't accidentally have the wrong two players that are in there. So there's a couple examples. This works for 8-ball and 9-ball of what you can and cannot edit. The last tip I'm going to show you when scoring 8-ball, and this also works for 9-ball, is sometimes you go to start the next match and you want to see the other team's roster, right? So if I hold my finger down and tried to slide this up, you can see it's just not really participating. However, if I tap anywhere on here, it will go ahead and switch over the rosters so that I can toggle back and forth between the two teams. So let's talk about the 23 skill level limit rule and how the app helps you not break that. We can also talk a little bit about the replay rule that is there to help prevent forfeits. So in this particular match, we have one team that I know it's cut off a little bit, but they've thrown 17 of 23 skill level points. If they throw a 4 or a 5, they're at 21 or 22 points. So regardless of who this team throws, they are safe from the 23 skill level violation. However, this team could throw a 5 and be at 23, or a 4 be at 22. But if they were to try and select their 7, notice that the screen alerts you of your 25 are the total points that they are throwing at this point. And the team would have to physically acknowledge that they're about to violate this rule before it will let the team do anything. So let's say it's a situation where that team does not have another player there. The only 5 people there are the 4 that have played and their 7 who they can't play at this point. The replay rule would kick in, assuming this team has alerted the other team prior to the first break of the 4th match, and assuming that every player that's played a match is still available to be selected. The other team could select one of the players that's already played, not their 7, because that would violate the rule. But let's say they decided to play Michelle Smith. Michelle Smith has already played and her name is grayed out. That's okay. You would still be able to select her as the 5th player in the match. The replay rule now prevents the forfeit and allows 5th match to be played without a 23 skill level violation. So when you're scoring 9-ball, there's a few different scenarios that you can run into that you need to make some edits. Usually it's when you're comparing ball counts at the end of each rack and you have to go kind of match up with the other team. I'm going to show you a couple tips on easy ways to do that. So in general, the player's name that is large here should be the player at the table. And as you select a ball, if you tap it one time, that ball should go up under the player's name and you should see their points increase here. If you tap that ball a second time, you'll notice that the ball is marked dead and there's no points awarded to either player. And if you tap it a third time, it's going to go back on the table in the event you accidentally hit a ball that was not made. So let's say Corey breaks and he makes the 2-ball and the 4-ball on the break. He gets hooked on the 1-ball, can't see it. He's just going for a good hit where he hits the 1-ball and hits a rail. That would be considered a defense shot. And then you'd end his turn. And then let's say Ashley gets to the table and makes the 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, misses the 8 ball, and then Corey makes the 8 and the 9. So my score is currently showing 10 to 10, right? Let's say I'm comparing with the other team, and I'm going to do this 2 different ways just to show you the edit kind of sensitivities. So right now I have not ended the rack, right? The rack is still currently going. If I try to pull this down, let's say the other team says, oh wait, I have Ashley at 11 and Corey at 9. So we're going to pull this down. We're going to pull this to the side. It's not going to let me edit game 2. If I tap on game 2, it's going to just bring me right back to my normal score. I have to start a new rack for me to go in and make any edits. This is going to be your easiest way to correct things. So now you can see it's grayed out. Now I can tap on it, and it brings me to my edit screen. Here I can do a few different things. So Corey made the 2 and the 4 on the break. Now let's say his team accidentally, they just weren't paying attention. They only saw the 4 ball go in, and then when they saw, Ashley make the 1, 3, and 5, they had accidentally credited the 2 ball to Ashley. So on their score, it would show the 2 ball under Ashley. So here you can see it showing her getting 6 and him getting 4, when in reality it was a 5-5 rack. All you have to do is pull these balls from side to side. You hold on to it for a second, and you can see you can easily pull it. You can even pull it as a dead ball. Anything you need to do so that the 2 screens match. I will also add here, you can make adjustments to innings, timeouts, or defensive shots for either player. It's very helpful if you're trying to catch up, taking over score from somebody else. You can also delete the rack. That's going to happen from time to time. Rarely, but the button's there just in case you need it. In a scenario that you would need to delete the rack would be if the 2 teams didn't agree. So let's say I'm positive that it should be 6-4, and I don't want to, negotiate with the other team. We can't come to an agreement. The rules state that teams should be able to come to a compromise, but in the event they can't, the best way to kind of rectify the situation is to replay the rack. So there's 2 ways to do this. I'm going to go back to our main screen here, and then I'm going to go back to our score. So one way to do it is if you're currently on the rack, so we're going to say undo rack over here. We're going to go back to the previous rack. I can use the 3 little dots here, and I can say reset this rack. Resetting the rack is going to delete all data. So notice that at the top here it says 3 innings. When I reset the rack, it's going to take away any innings that were added, defensive shots or anything like that. And now our score is back to 5-5, and we simply replay rack 2. When I come down here and I go to my edit, you'll notice that it has basically just reset game 2. So usually teams can agree on the balls that are made, especially balls made on the break and things like that. One weird thing, if you come to say made the 9 ball, the rack ending cannot be changed because an ending has been marked. This is really if a player makes like 9 on the snap or something, but it's not going to let you edit who made the 9 ball. In that situation, you are going to have to go back into the actual rack, which in this case, I could tap on game 2. And I could say undo rack over. So we're going to undo the start of the second rack. And then here I would physically have to unselect the 9 ball, move it to Ashley, and then select the 9 ball again. Normally you're catching that right after the rack has started because another player is breaking. So if you notice that, you can go back and you can start the new rack, but it's not going to let you change who made the 9 ball in the edit function. One thing you can do is move the 9 ball over, and that will adjust the points on the player's score. But just like an 8 ball, it's not going to adjust the player breaking at the table, and you would have to use the blue button to go ahead and select for the other player to show that they're now at the table. Again, it's a running total of innings, so as long as that inning gets marked during the game, you're okay. So this example is about makeup matches and match order. We have a couple matches that are have been left open on purpose to give you an example of what makeup matches can look like. So if I tap into that match, keep in mind this team played 2 matches on the original scheduled date, submitted their scores. Once we completed the input, we put it in as a partial, which opened this match back up for the team to score again at a later date. So that answers that question. Yes, please do submit your matches, even if it's a makeup match. At the top here, you'll see that there's 5 little dots. The grays represent matches that have been completed, blue is representing a match currently in progress, and the yellow represents a match that's been started, but no players have been selected yet. If I tap on those 5 dots, it's going to open me to my scoreboard. Again, you see the match is completed, the match in progress, and you see this weird yellow box. This means that somebody clicked the Start Player Match button, but they never selected players. So if your intention is to score the 4th match, you do not want to hit the Start Player Match button. You want to select the yellow box. That's going to open you into match 4, where you can then select the players and make sure that those players are in the proper order. Select who wins the lag, and you'll see that now that match is blue. So that means that it's now in progress. If you accidentally select the wrong player for who won the lag, there's nothing you can do to edit that. That is one of the few things you cannot go back and reverse with a button. You would need to go to the Edit Reset Player Match. Go ahead and type reset. And that's going to yellow out your box again because no players are selected again. So if you ever see a yellow box, or if you ever have to reset a match, please try to avoid selecting the new player match button. If you do that, it's going to start the 5th match, where really your intention was to score the 4th match. So if you see a yellow box, that should be the box you're selecting. You should not be starting a new match. You are in a division that has enough tables available where you can split your matches, or if you are running, a little bit behind one night and you have to split off and start your 5th match while you're finishing your 4th match, you can do that on Scorekeeper. As you can see here, both of these matches are blue, which means both of these are in progress. So basically, we'd normally want 2 different people keeping score on 2 different devices, but for sake of the video here, every time I just tap on this blue box, it's going to launch me into that game. And then all I have to do is pull this down and it will bring me back to my scoreboard, where then I can actually tap on this one and it will open up that game. So you could, in theory, keep score for 2 matches on one device. Ideally, we want a separate person from each team keeping score on each match so that you would have technically 4 scorekeepers going whenever you have 2 tables playing. So now we're going to talk about some weird situations. These do not happen often, but if they do come up, we want you to know how to handle it on the Scorekeeper app. So the first situation is a stalemate, where a player gives ball in hand to their opponent and their opponent doesn't want to shoot. They give ball in hand back to the opponent and neither player wants to shoot with ball in hand. That normally is what declares the stalemate. So in this particular match, you can see we have 6 innings in this game. We have 21 total. Gail and Josh both have 1 rack to their names. And you can see there's some defensive shots on both of their records. Now, in a stalemate, I would reset the rack. The original person who broke the rack is going to break again. I'm going to click the 3 little dots and I'm going to click Reset Rack. That is going to erase all data from this rack only. So notice that the top has now adjusted down 6 innings to 15, but both players still have their matches won from the previous racks played. The app knows that Jesse was the original player who broke the 3rd rack, so Jesse should be back at the table to break, and they would replay the rack. Other situation. Let's say, so in this situation, I'm on the team with Gail, and we are playing against our opponent's team, and Jesse's playing for them. Let's say Gail gets a phone call, and she has an emergency, and she has to go. There's nothing that the rules can help here. It's continuous play. Unfortunately, this would be a forfeit situation. So the three little dots again are going to bring up our forfeit individual match. As soon as I click this, it's going to ask which player is forfeiting the match. We're going to say Gail is the one forfeiting because she's the one leaving. It knows that the first rack was struck, so it does not cue you for that question. But if it is the beginning of a new match, it will ask you that. It does matter because when the two players, so here we're going to do it again. So Glenn versus Wendy. We'll say Glenn won the match there. So here, if I go to forfeit this match, it will ask if anybody struck a rack. Now, in the event I threw a player and no rack was struck, she got the phone call before, that player's skill level will not go in towards my 23 skill level cap. But if the rack was struck, then that player's skill level is used towards that 23 skill level limit, and that player cannot be used again. So if we say that the rack was not struck, it's going to ask which player forfeited. In this situation, we'll just say Glenn forfeited. Once you forfeit an individual match with the rack not being struck, that the team cannot play any more matches. Once you forfeit a match completely, you forfeit all subsequent matches. If you accidentally did that, you would click undo, and that will allow you to go and score the fifth match. But normally at this point, you would submit the scores. If there's any notes that you would like to leave to the league operator, you would type them here. So, Gail had emergency and had to leave early. So that's basically going to give a note to us so that we know why the match was forfeited. It kind of avoids us having to make a phone call or you having to call us. Sportsmanship rating is here. Please remember to fill this out. Your average every D night should be a 4. If the other team did something above and beyond, then you would give them a 5. If they had some arguments or time management issues, those would usually be a 3. And if there was some actual, verbal altercations and unsportsmanlike comments and sharking done, we'd look at 2 stars. And if there was a physical altercation, and only if there was a physical altercation, would we want to see 1 star. If we see 1 star, we're calling both teams to find out what happened. So please use that sparingly and know that it will call our attention to contact you. Sometimes we have some technical difficulties and the app starts doing some funky stuff. The first thing I do is go up to my initials and clear my cache. If it's a phone issue, if it's my phone, that will usually kind of help it. Sometimes that doesn't work. I'll close the app down completely and reopen it. And if that doesn't work, I will physically go and uninstall the app and reinstall the app, log back in. If none of those are working, I do need to go and grab the paper score sheet and a pencil and start keeping score the old-fashioned way. As soon as the app gets back up, usually we will send out an alert. It doesn't happen often, and usually it's only down for a very short time, but it does happen. So those are 3 tips that you can do to try to get it working again. And if all those fail, we're doing our best to get it back up. Thing we just want to touch on is the help button. If you go to the top right and click on your initials, it will bring you to the Help Center button. 2 things are going to pop up. One is going to be an easy way to call us here in the office. If we are available, we're more than happy to take your call and walk you through any problems. The other button is going to bring you to the Help Center, and we'll just go into that real fast. This is on the national page. It's going to be all of your common questions that come up during a match. If we're not available, sometimes you can find your answer here. They do have a couple recordings that are also great for new players that come onto the team. It covers everything from how to take over scoring a match, splitting tables, and stalemates, things like that. So that is the end of our Scorekeeper Help video. We hope that this has helped, and we hope you have a wonderful day.